I still remember the exact moment I saw her name light up my phone screen. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of quiet Tuesday that blurs into every other day when you live alone. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a bowl of leftover pasta going cold in front of me, half-heartedly scrolling through nothing on my phone, when the notification appeared. A friend request. Then, 2 seconds later, a message. "Hey Daniel, I know this is out of nowhere. I'm sorry if I'm overstepping. I needed to reach out. Claire." I set my phone face down on the table and stared at the wall for a long moment. 7 years. It had been 7 years since Claire Matthews had been any part of my life. 7 years since the night she told me she needed something. I couldn't give her space, freedom, a life that looked different from the one we were building together. I was 26 then, working a dead-end job at an accounting firm, living in a small apartment that smelled like old carpet, convinced we were going to make it work anyway. She left anyway, and I survived it, the way people survive things they never thought they could, slowly, then all at once. I quit the dead-end job, went back to school part-time, moved to a better apartment, then a house. I built something. It didn't look like what I'd imagined at 26, but it was mine. I picked the phone back up and typed back, "Hey Claire, you're not overstepping. What's going on?" She asked if we could meet in person. "Just coffee," she said. Neutral ground. She had something she needed to tell me, and she didn't want to do it over a screen. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. I won't pretend. I didn't feel something driving to that coffee shop on Saturday morning. Some old, familiar pull that I thought I'd long since untangled from my chest. I told myself it was just curiosity, maybe nostalgia. I was allowed to feel those things without letting them mean anything. She was already there when I walked in, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a mug. She looked older, we both did, but good. Her hair was shorter now, and there were fine lines at the corners of her eyes that hadn't been there before. She stood up when she saw me, and for one suspended second, neither of us said anything. Then she said, "You look well, Daniel." "So do you," I said, and I meant it. We sat down, and there was a few minutes of careful, surface-level conversation. "How's your family? How's work? Did you ever finish that bathroom renovation you mentioned on social media?" The kind of catching up that's really just two people steadying themselves before saying the thing they came to say. Then Claire set her mug down and folded her hands on the table. "I have to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to know that I'm not here to mess with your life or confuse things or—" She paused, took a breath. "I'm getting married." I looked at her. "His name is Patrick," she continued. "We've been together for 3 years. He's a good man, Daniel. He's really a good man." Her voice had gone, soft in a way that made something in my chest settle rather than ache. "We're getting married in the spring." "Okay," I said slowly. "Claire, I'm happy for you. I really am. But why did you need to tell me in person?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because Patrick knows about you. I told him everything. Who you were to me, how things ended, the fact that I've carried some guilt about the way I left for a long time." She met my eyes. "He told me that if I was going to walk into a marriage with a clear heart, I needed to close the doors I'd left cracked open. And the truth is, I left things cracked open with you. I didn't say anything. I let her keep going. I wasn't fair to you, Daniel," she said. "I told myself the story a certain way for years. That we just weren't right for each other. That it was mutual. That you understood." She shook her head. "But I left without really explaining myself. I left you confused. I know I did, and I'm sorry. I've wanted to say that for a long time, and I kept telling myself it was too late, or it would only make things worse, or you'd moved on and didn't need to hear it." She looked at me with clear, steady eyes. But I think I needed to say it regardless. The coffee shop hummed quietly around us. Someone's kid knocked a spoon off a table nearby and laughed at the clatter. I took my time before I answered. "You're right," I said finally. "You did leave me confused. I spent a long time trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. Turned myself inside out over it. I wasn't saying it to hurt her. It was just true, and it needed to be acknowledged. But I worked through it. And somewhere along the way, I stopped needing an explanation and just started living. Claire nodded slowly. Her eyes were bright. I don't hold it against you, I told her. I don't think I have for a while now. But thank you for saying it. It matters more than you probably know. She exhaled like she'd been holding that breath for years. We talked for another hour after that. Easy conversation, the kind that surprised me with how uncomplicated it felt. She told me about Patrick, how they met through mutual friends, how he proposed on a hiking trail in Vermont, and she cried so hard she couldn't speak. I told her about my own life, the consulting firm I'd eventually started, the house in the neighborhood I used to dream about, the dog I'd adopted named Hank, who destroyed exactly one good couch before settling down. She laughed at that. A real laugh, the kind I remembered. When we finally stood up to leave, she hugged me at the door. Briefly, warmly, the kind of hug that doesn't carry weight, just wishes you well and lets you go. I hope you find someone incredible, she said. I really mean that. I know you do, I said. Congratulations, Claire. Tell Patrick he's a lucky man. She smiled. I'll tell him you said so. And then she walked to her car, and I walked to mine, and that was it. 7 years of unfinished business, quietly closed on a Saturday morning over coffee. I sat in my car for a little while before I drove away. I tried to take an honest inventory of what I was feeling, the way I'd learned to do in the years after she left. Not running from it, not dramatizing it, just looking at it clearly. And what I found was something I hadn't quite expected. Relief. Not because she was gone from my life again. Not because the conversation was over. But because of what that conversation had confirmed, I had actually healed. Whatever I once felt for Claire had transformed over 7 years of living into something clean and uncomplicated. Goodwill, warmth, nothing more. There's a version of this story where I drive home devastated. We're seeing her open something old and raw, and I spend the weekend drowning in what-ifs. I'd braced for that version, a little. I think that's why I sat in the parking lot, making sure. But it wasn't there. Just quiet. Just the ordinary Saturday moving forward around me. I thought about it more over the following days. About what Claire had said. That Patrick had told her to close the doors she'd left, cracked open before walking into her future. I found myself respecting that. Both of them. It takes a certain kind of courage to ask for that conversation, and a certain kind of security to encourage your partner to have it. And it made me think about my own unfinished edges. The smaller apologies I'd never gotten around to making. The people I'd drifted from in ways that weren't quite clean. I wasn't living with major regrets. I'd done the work. Mostly, but Claire's willingness to show up and say the thing she needed to say made me want to hold that same standard for myself. Sometimes closure isn't about the person you're closing things with. It's about the kind of person you're choosing to be going forward. A few weeks later, I got a photo on my phone. Claire and Patrick both grinning on what looked like a beach somewhere, holding their hands up to show off matching rings. She'd sent it to a group of mutual friends we still had in common, and the messages flooding in underneath were all the expected warm congratulations. I typed mine and hit send without overthinking it. So happy for you both. Congratulations. And I meant it, easily, genuinely, the way you can only mean it when you've already let something go completely. I set my phone down and looked around my kitchen. Hank was stretched out on the floor in a rectangle of afternoon light, deeply asleep and utterly unbothered by the world. I went back to my Saturday, the one that was mine. Sometimes the people from your past come back not to reclaim anything, but to return something they were still carrying. And the most generous thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is to receive it gracefully, wish them well, and keep walking forward. That's all it was. That's all it needed to be. And somehow, in a way I hadn't anticipated, that quiet Saturday morning turned out to be one of the better things that happened to me all year.
I hope this story made you cry. If this story touched your heart, so like and subscribe. Thank for watching this video. I will see you next video.